Welcome to our crime book chat episode.
Yeah, I'm really excited, Christie. This is our second one of this series, which is a new series we started this season, where we talk to 4 different authors about their books and about their writing and life in general.
Yes, and today we have all women, so I'm expecting all very smart answers.
Ooh. And everyone's from all over the place, which is so great.
Yes.
Can't wait to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I hope they're not all in a blizzard like you. Maybe some of them are in the 80s like me, so sunny out and all that stuff.
Well, listen, let's get going to it. Let's jump in with the introductions, okay?
All right.
So I'm going to start with Raquel Reyes. Raquel has been on the podcast before. She was on the Corks and Conversation episode last year. Raquel,
fantastic debut.
Fantastic debut.
Yeah.
Raquel writes Latina protagonists. Her Cuban-American heritage, Miami, and Spanglish feature prominently in her work. Mango, Mambo, and Murder, which was the first in her Caribbean Kitchen Mystery Series, won a Lefty Award for Best Humorous Mystery. It was nominated for an Agatha Award and optioned for film. It was also, by the way, highlighted in the New York Times. Not a small thing for a debut author. She has written many short stories that have appeared in various anthologies, including The Best American Mystery and Suspense from 2022. You can find Raquel across social media platforms at Latina Sleuths and on her website, latinasleuths.com. Raquel, welcome. Tell us what
Thank you so much for having me back.
I know, this is so fun. And now with your second in the series, tell us about it.
Yeah, so you had mentioned Mango, Mambo, and Murder. Got terrible glare on my side, but there it is. Pretty cute. I love this cover. But I absolutely adore this cover. So this is Calypso, Corpses, and Cooking. If you can see by the pumpkins, it happens during the fall. It begins in Halloween and ends at Thanksgiving. And you have all the same great, fun cast and crew, because that's what cozy mysteries do, is they're character driven, and you fall in love with the cast of characters. In this one, if you liked Jorge from the first one, he was the guy who taught the Mambo size class. You're going to have more Jorge in this one, so you'll definitely enjoy it. And as the title suggests, corpses. There's several murders to be solved in this one. So.
Of course. Oh. All right.
Someone's got to die, Raquel. And someo's got to solve it, Raquel. That's just the deal.
Exactly.
I think there's going to be a lot of corpses in everybody's books. I'm just guessing. All right. So we also have today Meredith Hambrock. She's a Canadian fiction and television writer who grew up in Toronto and now lives in Vancouver. Her short fiction has appeared in several magazines, including Maisonneuve and Descant. And she's been a finalist for the CBC Short Story Prize. And most, that's the same initials we use, Crime Book Chat.
Yeah,
I gotta ask her what CBC. And most recently wrote for the sitcom Corner Gas Animated, which sounds very interesting. So Meredith, it's so great to have you here today.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me. And CBC stands for Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and it's like our kind of like PBS.
Okay, perfect. So tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so this is my book. Oh, hold on. Other People's Secrets. And yeah, it's about an alcoholic 20-something dumpster baby who lives in a small lakeside resort town. And when a wealthy new owner buys the resort that she lives in, works at, and wants to kind of turn it into a hipster nightmare, she and her gang get together to treasure hunt their way into saving their home. But that puts them on the wrong side of their small town drug kingpin. So it's a bit of a romp.
That is a very attractive sounding bit, I gotta say.
I know.
There's a lot. I know.
The dumpster baby I'm still at dumpster baby.
Yes, I know. It's
and show us your cover again. That is so cool.
Yeah. I don't know if I did the mirroring thing properly, but it's a
No.
bar. Yeah.
No,
There's
it's
a
perfect.
very
Yeah.
there's a very divey bar that it's all set in called the Bloody Parrot, and so this is the
Oh, yeah. And I love the colors because it's all the red and the black. And
yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for being here today, Meredith. That's
Thanks
awesome.
for having me. Yeah.
Okay, so I get to introduce M.E. Roche, who also goes by Peg, as you can see on the screen. I got to meet Peg last summer in Florida, and that was really fun. At Sleuthfest, which we got to give a plug for Sleuthfest, one of our favorite conferences. Okay, so while growing up in the Midwest, M.E. Roche lived on both coasts as well as Ireland. As a registered nurse, she had the opportunity to work in many facets of nursing, as well as serving as a volunteer with the local coroner, part of the Sheriff's Department in Northern California. Speaking of death, her first 3 books were young adult mysteries, introducing Nora Brady as a student. She's since moved into adult mysteries, and in addition, she's written a standalone mystery novel called Bigamy. So, Peg, welcome, and tell us what you're working on, or what your latest is.
Thank you. Well, the latest one that came out this year, I don't know if you can see it, A Haunting on Dunbar Lane.
It's got a spooky house on the cover.
Yeah, creepy.
This was really interesting because this house, the woman who has been, or the artist that was doing my covers for me, sent me several samples of what we might use. And this particular one was actually from Eureka, the houses in Eureka, which is kind of I don't call it Eureka in my books, but Jacobsport. But so I loved it. This is called The Pink Lady. But anyway, it's a story about a woman who buys a house, and the former owner has died, and she gets a good deal on the place. And it turns out the woman who died doesn't want to leave her house. Oh. So it's a kind of a case of, how are they going to get her to leave? So, and it carries through. But Nora Brady, as you mentioned, was in my first 3 young adult novels. And then this is the second adult novel that I've written, and that continue that same group of characters that were in the earlier ones, just older and wiser. And Nora also works with the Sheriff's Department. She's a detective in the Sheriff's Department. So
great. Well, thank you. Thanks for being here, Peg.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Okay, and last but absolutely not least is Mindy Carlson. She's a mystery writer, knitter, baker, and Montessori preschool administrator. She grew up on a farm in Iowa, and after wanting to be a veterinarian for most of her life, decided to bypass veterinary school to begin a winding journey toward writing that took her to UC Berkeley, Washington, D.C., and Basel, Switzerland. Very cool. Inspired by the change living Switzerland. Wait a minute. Inspired by the change, living Switzerland had her in a relation. Sorry, I'm having trouble reading this. Inspired by the change, living Switzerland had her in a relationship with her children. She decided to inspire others through a series of parenting articles before turning to murder. Hopefully not of other people. You can find these articles at such outlets as affineparent.com, Big Life Journal, and the Washington Post. So, Mindy, it's so great to see you. Can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah. So my book is,
She has a ghost. For those of you who are just listening, you have to watch on YouTube because...
Well, this is what happens when you have a virtual background and a mostly green book. But my book is Her Dying Day, and it's about a film documentary student who decides to use her thesis project as an opportunity to find out what happened to her favorite mystery author who disappeared 20 years before.
Oh.
Ooh,
That's a great
exciting
premise.
I know. I want to see the cover again. Can you hold it up like in front of your face or something?
Let's see.
Because it looks really
there
good,
we go.
doesn't it, Kathy? Like
It
her
looks
dying
super good. A very
day.
cool
I mean,
cover.
It's like, ooh, scary.
Yes. It's so funny.
That's hilarious. But you have a great
You're gonna
background.
show up.
so
You're
worth
gonna
it.
show up in next Peg's next book. As the ghost in next
That's
Peg.
right.
Okay, well, thanks for everyone for joining us. So listen, here's the thing. Christy and I do tons and tons of interviews with writers, and whenever we hear back from our listeners, they always want to know, and you guys know this, I think, where the idea for your book came from, right? Or where the character came from, either the plot or the character. So I'm wondering if you could share that, where the germ of the idea is, either from your character or, like in Raquel's case, for this latest installment. So Raquel, why don't you start us off and tell us what's going on with Miriam now?
Sure. So, what usually happens for me is I'll have a scene pop into my mind, and that will set the tone for everything. I did know, coming off of Mango, Mambo, and Murder, that I wanted it to only be a few weeks, a couple of months afterwards. I didn't want a whole big chunk of time going through. So that landed us in the fall. And the scene that came to mind was, what if Miriam's walking through her house? It's early morning, minding her own business. There's a scream. She looks out the window, and there's a Halloween tombstone. You know, it's one of those joke funny ones. You know, it's got
Like the decorations.
There. It's the decorations, but then there's an actual body lying there. So that was the scene that started it off. As like, okay. And then I knew some other things that were going to happen. I knew because one of the strong characters is the mother-in-law Marjorie. I say that readers love to hate her, and I knew that I knew that she had to kind of push a big project onto Miriam, and that was going to cause some of that. And the big project is a gala. So the fundraising gala event. So that's also one of the components that works through the story. So yeah, that's how I start with those.
No pressure. I love that this is where your mind goes, right? It's Halloween, like there's going to be decorations. We might as well just add an actual real body to it.
Might as well.
All right, Meredith, how about you? Where did your germ of idea with the dumpster baby and the bar and the...
Yeah, so I think it kind of it's a couple things, but I think it mostly started with the idea of a dumpster baby. She's grown up in a small town, and she's sort of just embraced her identity as a way of sort of getting ahead of the joke. So to like stop people from making fun of her about it or making her try to feel shame about it, she has embraced it and made everybody call her baby in her life. And she just has always been this sort of larger than life kind of like dirtbag character who's a bit of a bar star at this small town bar where she lives and hangs out with her friends. And that was definitely, I think, the genesis of this idea was this sort of like small town drunk she's not really aware of the world around her. She's not really aware of things. She's never voted is sort of a joke that I make in the book. And sort of putting her in this situation where she's forced to like grow and change, but in the context of like a crime novel. So that was kind of the darkly funny beginning. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of moving parts there.
And the small town always just gives you such a different background, right, than something taking place in Miami, for example, because it's just such a different dynamic.
Yeah, it's like...
So she was... Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I really love the idea of this small town, of these people who have grown up around each other, and it's almost become a bit of a toxic, enabling relationship where she has this gang of sort of funny friends that she hangs out with, and they're all kind of enabling each other to not grow up. And so it's a bit of a like adult summer camp almost, and sort of what happens when she's forced to see the world for once for what it is and face it.
Love that.
And when you say dumpster baby, you mean she was left in a dumpster as a baby?
Yes, she was found on swaddled in a bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos. Is sort of how her auspicious beginning, and then adopted. Yeah,
I already feel bad for her.
I don't. I want to be her friend.
I think there's benefits to being friends with baby, and there are drawbacks for sure.
That's hilarious. All right, Mindy, give us the skinny. Where did it come from?
So the genesis of this idea actually came to me a few years ago at the anniversary of Agatha Christie's disappearance, because Agatha Christie disappeared and for 11 days and nobody knew where she had gone. She had just published, I think, her second book, and she was becoming really well known. And of course, her husband was the primary suspect. And, the police really pulled out all the stops to try and find her. I mean, they had 10 to 15,000 people across England looking for her. And so I took that, and she was eventually found, of course. And I thought, well, what if she had never been found? What would be happening today about Agatha Christie? What sort of lore and legend would have come up? And so I thought, well, of course there would be blogs, of course there would be podcasts, and of course there would be a documentary. So that's sort of the genesis of that idea. And when I start a project, I write the opening 3 different ways, because I'm never sure exactly how I want to do it. I'm waiting for the voice to come into my head to tell me who this main character is going to be. And so that first line hit me, and I had written it 2 different ways, and I couldn't think of a third way to write it. So I went downstairs and I grabbed a glass of wine. And as I was coming back up the stairs with my glass of Chardonnay, all of a sudden it hit me, and I ran upstairs and I pounded out the first scene. It took me about an hour to write the whole first chapter. And then, and I never touched the wine, which I think was the biggest tragedy of the entire event. But yeah, that first scene never changed. And that set the whole voice for June. She grew up on a commune in the Adirondacks, a goat commune. And,
as you do.
As you do. Mm-hmm. To a couple of hippie parents who named her Pear Blossom Jubilee. But so she decided that when she went to college, the elderly registrar misheard her name or misread it and put down June, which was the month of her birth. And June just never corrected her because it was a very short, normal sounding name. So she decided she wanted short and normal sounding.
Okay, so you mentioned the first line. Do you want to share the first line with us?
Yeah, it's a little spicy, but
I want to hear it now.
So it's, if you've never been stuck under the bed while your lover has sex with his wife, I suggest you skip it. It's no trip to Disneyland.
Oh, that is so good.
That's good.
And so that was kind of that's a pretty definitive personality.
I was just gonna say, when you said you understood who she was, I absolutely want to hang with her a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, she finds herself in all sorts of. She's having an affair with her advisor, and she knows it's not a good idea.
Her and the dumpster diver, man, they sound like they'd be friends.
Would Baby and June be friends?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. They would be hanging out at the Bloody Parrot together all the time.
Totally.
So funny.
All right, Peg, we're dying to hear about the ghost situation. How does one get rid of one?
Unfortunately, there's not really anything very funny in this book.
No.
And it started basically because my sister passed away, and prior to her passing, she saw other people from her past, my parents among them. This wasn't the first time I'd heard of people. As a nurse, I've been with people when they've died, and I know that that's, it's not uncommon. But it got me to wondering more about, how much contact some people really have and how that works. And so I took some classes with a spiritualist and was just fascinated by the whole process. And I also learned that she had had some experience in, not in, what do I want to say, when you, my mind just went blank on the word, when you're trying to, like The Exorcist, she didn't do exorcisms per se, but she did work with people in terms of clearing their house of spirits, or things articles that were in their homes. And so I love the old houses in Eureka. And the thought of somebody buying one, I've done some renovations myself. So the thought of somebody renovating a house and then their personality changing in the process, how would that happen? And so
creepy. Oh
it
my
gets
gosh,
into
Peg.
The woman who has bought the house, her friends notice that she's changing. And so they're not really sure, is she being possessed or, so anyway, I won't tell you what happens.
Oh, I mean, that gave me shivers.
I know. I just got a little goosebumpy. I'm like,
It reminds me of, stories when you, like a transplant recipient, you've heard stories where they will take on characteristics of the donor. And so, a house holding that spirit, that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Well,
I love it.
And what a spirit could do and couldn't do, that was all kind of, a learning process.
Well, actually, it was probably a little bit of imagination too, right? Because we don't really know.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you could play with that. That's kind of interesting.
But there is a lot.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, there is a lot written. I mean, it was
a
little bit of research involved. So.
Fun. All right, so I thought we could talk about another thing that readers love to know about, and that is your writing process. Because everybody's is a little different, but everybody's trying to find somebody who's successful like you guys that are doing it, either they want to emulate or they're doing it that way and they're hoping for the best. So can we start with, let's start with Mindy.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to throw things in, all messed up. You got to be on your toes around here.
So my writing process is pretty routine. So I try and keep a routine of where I try and write at the same time every day. I have an office where I sit down and just start typing things out on the keyboard, and sometimes it's gold and sometimes it's crap, but you just got to keep going, because just the more you write and the more you add to the document, you're basically creating like a mountain. And then when you start editing, that's when you sort of tunnel through the mountain and find all the gems and start pulling these gems together to create your little treasure chest of a book. So, and if I ever find myself,
analogy.
Thank you. If I ever find myself stuck, I tend to go to a coffee shop to write, just change my surroundings to go and write. I mean, I'd love to say, oh, I go for a walk or I go out for a run, but I hate exercise. So, and I love coffee.
And we're being honest here. Let's be honest.
Absolutely. So I go to a coffee shop instead of sort of do any sort of blood circulation.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, do you have like a set time? I know you say you start at a set time. Is it time and then you stop, or do you have a word count, or do you just
it depends on what my goals are for this particular book. Sometimes I have a word count. Sometimes I try to get between 1,600 and 2,000 words in a day. Sometimes 6 good pages, like Stephen King said. I just want 6 good pages, and then I feel like I've done a good job for the day. And I used to think, God, 6 pages, I could churn that out. But man, let me tell you, 6 good pages is hard to get.
Right.
But yeah, and sometimes it's just, I'm just going to spend an hour at this and see what happens. So it kind of depends on where I am mentally. If I'm having a hard time with the document, if I'm having a hard time with the story, then I'll give myself a time limit, because I don't want to punish myself for not doing good work. I want to give myself the opportunity to get through whatever block I'm in. But but to say, well, you have to get 1,600 words today. I mean, that is going to be torturous if you're stuck on a plot point or a concept and it just hasn't come to you yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like Raquel, you now are working on deadlines. So how has that changed your process?
It really hasn't, because I know how long it takes me to write a book, and I there's some people who write several series at the same time. I am just in awe of those people. It's going to be one book a year for me, and then hopefully, a handful of short stories, because I kind of use short stories as, like as a sorbet, they're like a little palate cleanser, to kind of get me, where I need to be. But it takes me 10 months to write a book. And I am methodical. I write from point A to point B. I don't do the 3-card Monty and shift around my chapters and all of that stuff. I'm writing a polished manuscript as we go. So I edit, and that's why I say I'm methodical. I'm very much thinking about that. I don't do a lot of editing that isn't like big edits. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the no big, huge developmental edits will be happening.
Do you outline then ahead of time so that you know?
I'm a discovery writer. I know the beginning. I have a pretty good idea of the end, and I have a couple of key scenes in the middle. And then I allow myself to, find the story as I go along. But I keep a notebook beside me. I keep good notes. So if I put something in a certain chapter that I know I have to pick up later, I make myself a note so that I can come back around to it. Or if there's something, because I write a culinary cozy, and, my main character is a food anthropologist, which has to deal a lot with history and culture and so forth. So if there's something that I need to be thoughtful about, like I'll kind of make a note to make sure that I'm representing that properly or so forth. But those are things that I can come back around to in the end. It's not, crucial to the story. So that's the reason why I write with a notebook. Yeah.
Well, that is methodical. I'm sorry, I'm looking like a ghost here. But I'm trying to get it so my camera doesn't flicker.
That's so interesting, because a lot of people we talk to are like, oh, just get that first draft down and then you can go back and edit. And so, but there are obviously writers that edit as they go. It seems like that's where the camp you're in.
Which it's because I come from poetry. That's where I started with. And a poem is much easier to edit, right? It's very short. You can mess around with that, no problem. But also I have a theater degree, and I have this feeling about that. You put the work in and you put the play up on the stage, and then it's done. It's no longer yours. And I feel that I take, like you can't mess around with it. You know what I'm saying? Because I did theater. I was directing. I wasn't an actor. I was on the directing side of it. And so that directing side of it is very strategic and thoughtful and so forth and so on. And then once you kind of do all that prep work and finish it and hand it off, which is to me like the deadline, once I meet my deadline and hand it off, then it has its own life and it does what it needs to do. And I don't need to be worrying about it because there's nothing I can do about it. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I do feel like there's a parallel between, kind of like what I was trained to do as a director, is to think about plotting and think about motives and think about stage directions and all of those things that you're doing as you're listening to your actors coming at you, like you've done your work and then your actors come at you and you make little adjustments and so forth. And then you trust the process, because the process is you just have to trust the process. And I believe that that's kind of what I do, is I really do trust my own process and know that I'm going to get where I need to go. And then it's done.
Well, it obviously works because your book is fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Mindy. Thank you.
And Peg, we'll go to you. How do you write? You've written several novels.
I usually write first thing in the morning for about an hour and a half. And I find that's my most creative time. I also keep notes as I go along, and I use the edit function in Word. I write using Word. I don't use an outline. I like the idea of not knowing myself where the story is going to take me. So I find for editing, like right now, I've started another book that I've started in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I'm finishing the editing on another novel that I hope to get out maybe by February.
I think that's a good plan, kind of separate the editing and stuff. I don't know if
it's more,
works for everybody,
yeah, I think it's more of a technical focus rather than the creative part.
Creative focus.
So you can really be working on 2 projects, but in different phases then. It's like one's in writing phase and one or drafting and one's in editing.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Meredith?
So.
Yes. I'm very similar, I think, to everybody here. Although I do outline, but I outline in a way where I come up with a story enough that I get excited about it. Not, chapter by chapter or anything, kind of like I like to think of it in like the 5 or 6 kind of major beats. And then I'll write every morning, try to do like 1,000 words a day because that feels attainable to me. Especially just with my like day job and teaching schedules or whatever I'm doing. And then if I surpass that, oh boy, like what a celebration you can have.
I know, that is
yeah. Get some words in the hopper.
Exactly. But I also like to think of my outlines as like a first draft of a story where I get to kind of be like, oh, like who came up with this dumb idea? Like I have a way better one now. So I get to kind of like rebel against myself a little bit while I'm writing, I think, which I like a lot. And to feel like, oh, wow, like, oh, man, I was so dumb 6 months ago, but now I'm a genius. Like I've come up with the best twist.
Oh, gosh, that's so good. So I'm going to keep that in my head.
Constantly feeding my own egos and delusions, I guess. But in a way, because I find drafting just painful. Oh, my God, I just hate it. I cry. I can't sleep sometimes. Like it's just getting a first draft out for me is so hard. So I distract myself a lot with music and stuff like that. And then like the rewriting can go on for years and years and years for me. Just being so precious and dumb about things. So I need to get better, I think, at it.
That's awesome.
That's
being so precious.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, listen, we're midway. It's time for Christie's question in a bottle. I'm going to have a little beverage sip here, and Christie has a question that you might get to at the end of a bottle of wine. Not that we've ever done that before. Originally at Sleuthfest, I'm just saying.
Okay. Oh, this is fun. Would you rather go bungee jumping or to a nude beach?
Nude beach.
Who yelled nude beach so fast?
Me. I'm terrified of heights. I had a really bad fall from I was doing my mother a favor when I was 16. I was painting her skylights in the new edition of the room, and the ladder slipped and I fell. And after that, I was like, done with heights forever.
I'm just gonna be naked for the rest of my life because that's my option.
100% be naked rather than have to go on top of something.
Well, at the beach, we can be in the water.
Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly.
That's just getting in and out.
Raquel, have you been to Hollover recently? Or?
I have not, but I do. That's the nude beach near us. We're about 30 minutes away, 30 miles away from each other. Yeah. And interesting, where Hollover is. That's all
I just happened to look it up today when I was talking about nude beaches. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Christie, we want to know.
I have not been there either.
Oh, Raquel, I hope you put a nude beach in your next book.
Oh,
please.
So the Hollover Beach that she's talking about is also right near a really nice dog park that they made, and a dog beach, because that not all beaches you can take your dog to. Right. And I think they built a skate park over there. I mean, they've got a lot going on there.
You could hit everything.
You would think that the nude beach would be a little bit more secluded. and it's right at the mouth that brings you into an intercontinental that is like there's like even a channel for a Hollover, a beach channel.
Just Hollover Inlet right there, right?
Right. Well, where the boats come in, and like there's this guy commenting oh, look at what he's doing. Ah, ha, ha. Because, the boats flip because there's like this terrible current and wave and people don't know how to take it. And, they're in this little bitty boat and anyway, I'm just saying it's a very interesting choice to put the nude beach where all this other activity is going on. It's just such an odd thing.
Wait, they might as well combine it, right? And just have a nude dog beach. Like, bring your dog, be naked, just do it all.
And then on South Beach, if you go all the way down to Miami Beach to South Point, it's whatever is called European. Like so you can
topless.
You could go topless there and so forth. So is that big of a difference? I don't know.
Meredith, we're dying to hear here.
Oh, well, you honestly just made me think of what it would be like to bungee jump over a nude beach. So I've just been giggling. Just imagine just going
bungee jump nude.
Oh my goodness! Yes. Oh God.
There's some parts I don't really want dangling. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I have been to a nude beach actually, because Vancouver's a little hippy dippy, but ours is hidden a little bit. It's like you kind of go down this like hiking path and stuff like that. But I'm kind of with Mindy. I'm too big of a wimp to bungee jump really. So definitely nude beach, but with a lot of sunscreen.
We're dying to know.
But with a lot of sunscreen, is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Did you ask me? Is that what you
Yes, I did.
Peg's like, I don't want to answer this.
That's exactly right. I would stall, but I'd probably hope somebody pushed me for the bungee jump. I don't think I could do the nude beach.
I hear it's a lot of fun, but I'm too afraid of heights too,
Oh, I thought you were going to say I'm too scared of the nude beach. I heard a lot
when I was younger, it didn't bother me, but now I'm like Raquel. I think I could spend a lot of time in the water.
Yeah. Okay, so let's think, forensically, right? Like bungee jumping is not really great on the spine. Like if you're young, maybe you have the muscle tone and so forth and so on to keep all of those things in line. But, I'm just saying, as a writer who spends so much time at the desk in front of I don't know that I would want to put my body through that. That's all.
That is a good point. I didn't think about that.
I don't think
I could. It could be a way to kill somebody, couldn't it? Right?
Oh, 100%.
A bungee jumping accident?
Oh boy.
Yeah. Maybe they already have a back problem or a slip disc or something like that. And that I'm putting it out there.
Yeah.
Somebody
It's a lot easier than trying to hide a weapon at a nude beach.
That's true.
Okay, let's go on. Let's go on to the real questions.
Sorry, I'm sweaty. Okay.
She's sweaty with a blizzard going on. That tells you something.
Well, I have a dress that's lined. I have a turtleneck dress that's lined in fleece, and I get this conversation warm me up, and I'm a little hot. Okay.
Okay. So my question is, what about the writing and publishing industry surprised you the most? And what were the best or the most challenging parts? Just kind of tell us a little bit about your experience. And I'm going to go with Meredith first because she's nodding like she knows an answer.
She's like,
oh no, there's nothing going on up here. No, I'm just kidding. Just crickets. No, I'm just kidding. I think, oh gosh, everything surprised me because I just found it very challenging, I guess in some ways to know what I was supposed to be doing. It was my debut novel that came out, and I a lot of the time was just feeling very adrift and kind of unsure. And but the kind of flip side, the good side of it was that I made a lot of really great friends along the way, which has been really lovely. And the crime writing community especially is just so lovely and open and kind. And Mindy and I are at the same agency, and Mindy started a group chat for us, and it has been just such a great well for friendship and community and finding community with books. And then in Canada, we have an organization called Crime Writers Canada, where I met a lot of people, and everybody's just so willing and lovely and helpful. And So for me, it's always the friends I made along the way, I guess.
Oh, that's great.
Aw. Yeah.
And
it's
that's
like-
encouraging,
Yeah,
it's
it's been
really
so nice.
encouraging.
Yeah.
All right, so Mindy, do you have the same
Um,
experience?
Yeah, I mean, of course, Meredith is like the best part of my friendship with Meredith. Is the best part of the whole experience. But yeah, I think well, I get to read books now for like work because I also do interviews with authors for the Big Thrill magazine.
Oh, okay.
So I
Well,
get
you're like us. We get to read books. Read books.
we get
all
to
the
read,
time.
you know, reading books is part of my job, and then I get to talk to authors about how awesome their books are, and that would not have happened if I hadn't started the journey of becoming a mystery writer. One of the more surprising things along the way was how fourth grade book report presentation experience would come in handy when
Interesting.
when delivering book talks. It feels almost exactly the same, especially when you're in your hometown and you have your fourth grade English teacher, seventh grade English teacher, eighth grade English teacher, 10th grade English teacher, and your senior year English teacher in the audience.
Wow. That's first
that
of all,
was-
that's impressive that they're all still around and in your hometown.
Yeah. They like
And-
people who go to the hometown are loyal. They never leave.
Yeah.
That's
It's
awesome.
it's very
But think how fulfilling that was for them.
Yeah.
they were all, I think, shocked.
Yeah.
Like
Maybe
her?
like you
Her?
had it in you.
I think that I had it in me. Yeah, because I was going to be a veterinarian. I mean, I grew up on a farm. I delivered my first cow when I was 6. I was part of FFA and the ag classes, and you know, I loved to read, but I certainly wasn't a writer. I wasn't writing my own stories out, even though I had them kind of circulating in my head. And I didn't start writing until I saw an interview with Toni Morrison, who said, if there's a story in your head is written yet, then you're going to have to write it. That's the universe telling you you have to write that story. And I was like,
Wow.
well, darn it.
Shoot.
I guess I have to write a story.
Oh, that's great.
Love
That's
that.
great. And Raquel,
Oh, what? Oh, wow. You know,
you've had a really a whirlwind, wonderful experience. I
yeah,
think.
my debut was really great, and now I'm in my sophomore. And did I learn anything? I don't know that I did. I mean, it's the same thing I've said before. There is a percentage of luck out there, and yes, you make your own luck by, you know, what connections you've made and networking you made, and how involved you are in the community and so forth and so on, you know. But there's some of it that you just like boggles you. You know, sometimes you'll get an email that they want you to write an article for something or do something and you're like, how did that happen? You know, like,
Yeah.
because sometimes it feels like you don't have a lot of control over things, right? You know, you're just kind of at the mercy of the readership or the publishers or the you know, it's like you don't get numbers back, you don't get data, you don't know what is working and what's not working, you know. So you just kind of have to go out there and do the things that you enjoy and do them authentically, and just hope that they're going to translate into making sure you get another book contract, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, aren't you? Did you get an option for like a movie or show?
Yeah,
or
and again, that was beyond my control. Like, I didn't, you know.
So
you know,
what can you tell us about that? Anything?
It was really great. I was very, very lucky that I actually got to meet with the production company before we signed the papers, because since my series is so culturally forward, and specifically Cuban American and Latina and Latinx, you know, we just wanted to make sure that that it was represented well. And so this production company is called Gato Grande, which is Big Cat. They work in conjunction with MGM, but they're based in Mexico City and LA. And so one of my things was like, I know that because of budgeting and so forth and so on, you might not necessarily get to film in Miami. Okay. But it would be great if you had somebody on staff who was a Miami native who could tell you if that is authentic and looks right and does right. And so, I know that you'll be hiring Latinas from various backgrounds, but you need to make sure that you have a dialect coach that has Caribbean Spanish, because Caribbean Spanish is very different than Mexican Spanish or, Spanish from Spain, those things. And so we kind of got to talk about those things and be on the same page with that, which was a wonderful experience. But I don't know that experience happens for all authors. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like this process. Oh, we sold your film rights. And then, you get that email. You don't necessarily get the back and forth of the details of what's going on. So they've got it. They're still have it for however long. I think they have the option for 18 months.
Okay, that's not too bad, because I've heard of like 10 years or something, and I'm like,
no, they have the option for 18 months, and then they have another option to extend it another year, and then and so who knows? Any day now, I might get an email that says, "Oh, we're going on with production, and we'll be sending you, that second check we promised you," or "Sorry, it's dead in the water." Like, I don't have control over that.
Control.
So, yeah, it's out of my control.
So your analogy reminded me of parenting a little bit. While you do the best you can on what you can control, you kind of don't know you've done a good job. Like, there's no grade, right? Like at what point do your kids go, oh yeah, you're like, oh, you're fine, you're functioning, right? It's down the road.
Yeah, no,
just like your book stuff. Sorry, bad analogy.
Well,
no, it's absolutely
it's
true,
exciting.
though.
Well, I can't wait to hear what happens. You never know. Yeah.
Peg, I think, is what we're waiting
Peg.
for. Yeah.
I think for me, the biggest thing is there's so much to learn. It's, when you think about writing, you think, it's just putting it together, producing a product. But there's so much, and I think the hardest thing, not just for me, but for all authors, is the marketing component. Even if you have a publisher or an agent, you're still responsible for doing so much, which I didn't have. You're still responsible for doing so much for yourself. So I'm constantly learning new things that I should be doing, or a better way of doing what I've already been doing. So I think that is the worst part of the job. But I have to keep reminding myself not to get sidetracked on that if it's writing that you want to do, that's what you need to really focus on, and then worry about the marketing when the product is done, when you think it's ready to send out.
Yeah, it's so many things to juggle. I know. That's how Kathy and I first met, when we were first new, we just finished a book or novel or whatever, and we were amazed at what we didn't know. And so we said, that's how we started. We were like, oh, we're learning this stuff. Let's write a blog about it. Let's do a podcast about it, because it's just, there's so much to learn and so many different roads to do it, so.
Okay, so I have a final contextual question, and then Christie's got a final fun question. I would like to ask each of you for two things. One, a piece of advice to share with other writers, and what you're working on now. And I'm going to start with Peg.
Wow. What was the first one?
A piece of advice for other writers. We have lots of writers that listen to the podcast. And
well, I think what, again, going back to somebody mentioned Stephen King, it's put your butt in the chair, just write. You need to start. You need to have the routine, which I think each of us has said already, and just stick to that. It won't get done unless you have some kind of a routine. And What was the second
What are
one?
you working on now?
That's the problem with this.
So are you working on another project right now?
These are easier questions by the end because of that.
Yeah, we have to pace ourselves.
Well, in September I did, well, actually back in April, when I was sort of thinking about my next project, I was thinking of, first, I have no idea, but I had a great aunt who lived with my grandmother, was her sister. And the story in the family always was that her husband and 2 children had been killed in a fire. And that's why she had come back to live with my grandmother. And I started on exploring and discovering that that wasn't really the case. But she had been a homesteader in Nebraska and married somebody from there. So just raised all kinds of questions. How does a woman in Chicago meet a guy in Nebraska? And, you know, so researching that and family stuff. So the story is kind of starting to shape up. 3 of my grandparents had come over from Ireland, so this aunt was one of those.
Cool.
So she was also an immigrant as well as a homesteader. So
Lots of content there.
And learning just about, I didn't know anything about the Dust Bowl because that was outside of reading The Grapes of Wrath. You know, that was, you know, so there's a lot of research involved in that. And then I wanted to see where they did homestead. And so I took a road trip to Nebraska.
Fun. I love the
that.
research part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that too.
All right, Mindy, advice? What you're working on now?
Well, my advice is that a lot of people think that they can't write, that no one's going to read their story, that whatever they have to write, somebody else is going to do it, but no one else can write your story. You know, no one can tell it with your point of view. No one has your experiences in your life that are going to help color and create that story. So, and we need your voices out there. So you have to tell it. You have to tell your story. The next thing I'm working on is a 3 point of view novel about estranged sisters investigating the death of their mother, humorously.
Of course, as you do.
Right. And then I have another book I'm doing some edits on, which is the TV show Friends meets And Then There Were None.
That's excellent. All right, Meredith, advice and what you're working on.
Yeah, I guess my advice is don't be afraid of rejection. Because, and this will help you in your dating life also. It's an opportunity to find the right place, the right people to work with, the right editors, the right agents and stuff like that. So if you treat it as like a weeding out process, more like someone needs to pick me process, it feels really like, it just feels like a lot better and you can have more fun, I think, with that. So that has always helped me. And because like I like love writing. I think I'll write even if they refuse to publish anything else of mine. I will always write. So I think, but the publishing part can be really scary. So just, you know, grit your teeth because it is worth it. And don't be afraid. And then what I'm working on now, I'm working on a kind of darkly funny, I'm gonna say sort of thrillery type book about she's a woman who's the childminder for a production of The Sound of Music, the musical. And I don't know if I can even publish this, but it's and she sort of decides that she deserves the lead role of Maria and she's gonna get it.
I was thinking she should be the Maria.
And she's going to get it. I love that.
She's gonna get it. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, Raquel, we're going to end with you. Advice and what's going on next.
Sure. I'm going to give you advice from kind of with my Sleuth Fest co-chair hat on. Because I see a lot of, you know, writers come in and they are looking for the magic beans, you know, that one thing or the magic pill that's gonna make all the pieces fall into place and do it. And I'm sorry to have to tell you, there is no magic one thing. You know, It is learning your craft. It is learning your craft in various different ways. It is a journey and a long process and so forth. And I kind of like, give yourself over to the joy of writing and the joy of the journey, and stop looking for that one magic thing that is gonna make it all, it's the wand that just makes it all of a sudden appear. Writing is work, and we have to do the work. And there is no magic solution. There's no magic beans. There's no magic pill. You just have to go out and do it. And if you can stop looking for that thing, I think you will be much happier, because then you will just be in the moment and doing the work and learning the craft.
Good advice.
That's beautiful advice. It reminds me of the ladybug advice in Under the Tuscan Sun. Has anybody seen the movie Under the Tuscan Sun? Diane Lane?
Yeah, Diane Lane.
And she was terribly unhappy, this character, so unhappy, and this kind of her woman who gives her advice says, just stop already and just, lay down, and the ladybugs, you'll find them crawling all over you. And we just watched this movie, and she just stopped fighting and looking for the perfect thing. And at the end, of course, this lovely man comes into her life and picks a ladybug off of her arm. And
well, that sounds like a great movie.
It's a great movie.
But it has wine in it, I think. And maybe that was why Kathy first started watching it. I don't know, maybe.
It's a lovely movie. Okay, Raquel, what are you working on?
Book 3 has just been turned in, and so I will be working on the recipes for book 3, but before this little holiday break, that in those weird days at the end of the year and the beginning of the year, when time stops, or moves slowly, at least, right?
Or moves fast, or whatever.
And then in mid-January, I'll start working on book 4.
Yay! Can't wait to hear what Miriam's up to. That mother-in-law.
All right.
In book 3, she goes to Puerto Rico. I can tell you that much.
Ooh.
Yeah. So.
All right, Christie.
Like Puerto Rico. Okay, so our final question here. This is. I think we should just we'll pick somebody, and then you guys start thinking on who can add to it, because Kathy and I are starting a crime fighting team, and we want you guys to offer one of your characters for a spot on our squad, the GOB squad. So which would you volunteer, and what would their role on the team be? Go, Raquel.
Okay, I'm going to volunteer Jorge, because Jorge is unbelievable. He can help you out with costumes. He can help you out with makeup, and also he could be your fitness instructor. So
okay, so that means we're planning on going undercover, so we need him to get us ready to fight that crime. Okay. Yep. Anybody else have any characters they want to offer up here?
I'll volunteer Nora. She can be your health advisor as well as crime detection.
All right, yeah.
Since she's
I know, we need somebody to help us detect. Meredith, Mindy?
Yeah, sure. I will volunteer Baby, my lead character, because she's scrappy. She loves to fight. She can do the worm, which I think would be good. It's good to have
distracting while we go and sleuth.
Absolutely. Although I think she's she can make bad choices, so there might need to be somebody there to help reel her in. But her heart's in the right place sometimes.
Maybe Mindy can help with that.
Yeah, well, in that case, I'm going to offer June's cousin Meadow, because she's a lawyer and you're all going to need it.
Oh, yeah. Good one.
That was excellent. Okay,
perfect.
Where is the best place for our listeners to find you? Website, social media, what's the best place? Peg.
Website.
Okay.
emmyroach.com.
Okay. Mindy?
You can find me on my website, mindycarlson.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Mindy Carlson Author, and that's also Instagram too.
Meredith?
I love Instagram. I'm at Meredith Hambrock Books. I'm on TikTok, I think with the same handle, though not as often.
Doing the worm?
Yeah, I wish. No. And then I also have Twitter. Who knows what's going to happen, but you can find me there at Meredith Hambrock also if it's
Today
still,
at least. Yeah.
afloat.
And okay, Raquel.
Yeah, I'm also mourning the loss of Twitter because that was my favorite place. I'm definitely on Instagram, and I've just started doing book talk. I'm doing like book recommendations and what I'm reading and so forth. And I'm having a really great time over there on the Ticker Talkers.
I know. I'm gonna have to look at that.
Like,
I'm gonna have to watch you because
that
it's
really
fun.
Niche little area. I haven't gone into like the dark side of it. I really love the algorithm's giving me lovely stuff over there.
Okay, good.
I love TikTok. I have a blast because
Yeah.
you end up seeing what you see, so it kind of
Right. Yeah.
I really like it. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. You guys, it has been a lot of fun. We're so thankful that you guys joined us for this very fun conversation. And I think we just have to do a toast to all of you guys and future success, and keep on writing.
Cheers.
Cheers.